In the first episode of this series, we're going to be exploring the Crossing Cultures room with some of the first acquired Indigenous works and post-war modernist paintings. From a quick read of the wall label, you'll be instantly convinced to look at these Indigenous works through the lens of modernism. Post-World War II abstract expressionism in the US began influencing Australian abstract artists. At the same time, the gallery also began to shift its focus to collecting Australian art, and more importantly, Aboriginal art. Placing these works in the same room, we see the commonality of abstract forms and with the theme of land coming from two different cultural perspectives. Dominating this space is the Pukimani grave post, which sets the visual theme of Australian land and earth with the natural materials and umber colours. These posts were the first commissioned Aboriginal works and the first traditional Australian cultural object to be placed and viewed as fine art in 1959, a huge turning point for public art institutions and how Australian art history began to include Australian and Torres Strait Islander art in the collection. Dr. Stuart Scougall, after his visit back from Melville Island in the Northern Territory, came to the Art Gallery of New South Wales with great excitement about the Pukimani grave posts and argued that it would be pointless to acquire one or two of the works and a group was essential. With the support of Tony Tuxon, these grave posts were commissioned. In Tiwi culture, these posts are to commemorate deceased persons and a transitional burial ceremony for the dead to exit the living world and preventing the spirit from wandering. These ones here, however, are made for outside audiences and instead represent the spirit of the artist. These Pukimani grave posts have been previously installed in the Tribal Art Gallery, a gallery of primitive art in 1973, and the Grand Courts of Colonial Art. In 2012, these posts were reinstalled to sit in the 20th century gallery alongside modernist and postmodernist works. Wayne Tunnicliffe implemented plans for the proposed rehang to reflect how art history could be transformed, intersected, or disenfranchised through exposure to different spaces within the gallery. A statement that we can apply to this room as it shows how Aboriginal art does not sit completely separate from Australia's art history. Unlike the bold and bright colours of abstract expressionism we saw in post-war modernism in the US, many of the works in this room have similar approach to abstraction, but rather use an umber and earthy tones. This is most likely an artistic reaction to Australian country, not dissimilar to the Aboriginal art approach to art making. The influence of abstract expressionism coming out of the US, Aboriginal culture and Australian landscape created an art style of post-war modernism unique to Australia. Although it is not known that Tuxon was visually influenced by these Indigenous artworks, he had a keen interest in Indigenous art making, and there is a clear indication of Australian landscape through the umber colours in these works. In entering the 20th century galleries, there are multiple entry points from which you can make your way through to the Crossing of Cultures room. Each approach gives you a different angle of the Pukimani grave posts in visual conversation with different kinds of artistic approaches and cultures. From one angle, we can see the complementary Yolngu bark paintings, where you can identify similarities in the mark making and colours. From the other side, visitors can see Australian abstract works through the posts, from which we can identify slight formal relations of mark making and earthy tones as well, both a different reaction to Australian land.